here, and as you can see from these police cars right in front of us, they really come from all across central Indiana. For example, Sharpsville is here, as well as Noblesville, Fishers, Zionsville, Boone County, Lawrence, you name it. Basically, almost every central Indiana city and sheriff's department is represented here, and you can see that on their cars, they also have that black stripe over the badge, showing the sign that they have lost one of their brothers in blue. A huge sign of support here as all these officers here from across the community are here. But what I also want you to take a look at here on the sidewalk just outside of the hospital, you'll see not only police officers, but a lot of nurses and doctors as well from right here at St. Vincent's Hospital, who are taking time out of their day, lining up here on the sidewalk this morning to pay their respects to Deputy Pickett and his family. Again, that procession is expected to begin here at 9 o'clock and then head its way into downtown Indianapolis. Some people have even brought signs as well as they prepare here for this large procession to begin here and head down 86th Street. I want to bring in Chopper 13 HD flying over the scene right here to kind of give you an idea as well of the huge number of people who are gathering out here and the huge number of law enforcement also gathered out here with heavy hearts after losing Deputy Pickett. He is survived by his wife, a teacher, and two young boys who will now only have the memories of their father after what happened so tragically last Friday, and as they try to cope and understand and process everything and move on. And we're also hearing so many stories about Deputy Pickett. For example, on Sundays, you would routinely see him at the Traders Point Church helping to direct traffic for the services that were held up there. We've also heard from people who actually turned their life around, touched by Deputy Pickett in the time he was on the force there at the Boone County Sheriff's Department. So many people you can see are coming out here just to pay their respects and be a part of this moment here in Indianapolis, really a historic moment as well in our city. So we have a lot of people who have actually come over to join in and just kind of watch everything that's happened to us. We're joined right now by a young lady. Thank you for joining us this morning. What made you compelled to come here today?
I work right across the street here, and just ever since this happened, it's been a big talk around this entire campus. I'm a big supporter of the police department, and my heart goes out to that family and the entire police force. I'm just very touched by everything that has happened over the last few weeks, or few days actually.
Yeah, I know it's been a very long few days and a long weekend. Mm-hmm. What is it like to see this huge growing number of support for Lieutenant Pickett?
It's amazing. It really does show the support that we all have as a community all together.
For joining us. We'll let you get back to kind of watching the procession route. Again, expected to begin. We've got some motorcycles getting ready here. We have a number of IMPD officers here also joining in with their motorcycles as well, beginning this procession route that's expected to begin here in just a couple of minutes. And I want to bring in some video right now. This has been such a difficult weekend since everything happened Friday morning. A number of vigils have been held all across Boone County and in Lebanon as well, really paying tribute to Deputy Pickett and his service to the community. And at so many of those, basically every one of those, Sheriff Nielsen made it a mission to go to them and to thank the community for their support. In fact, at one vigil, it became standing room only. So many people came that they ran out of seats inside the church. There was such an outpouring of support there. So that's something that we've really kind of seen all weekend long, as there have been so many developments all weekend long as well. Of course, the one that came last night was the news of his organ donation, and that his heart would be donated to someone right here within the St. Vincent's Hospital campus, and that took place overnight. And last night they turned off the life support machines, and he did pass away just before 4 o'clock this morning. Services are still pending right now for his funeral, but it is believed that will be held on Friday, and that is expected to be another emotional day, exactly 1 week since everything happened so tragically there on that call in the Boone County community. So again, right now at this hour, we're just waiting for everything to begin here with this procession that is expected to take place here from the community up here at the St. Vincent Hospital campus and down into the streets of Indianapolis on a very emotional day here. You can see from these police officers, and not just police officers who are here, but also fellow first responders from Boone County. We're talking about ambulance personnel, nurses, first responders who are also here as well to pay their respects. So a lot of heavy hearts here that will continue here as we await this procession to begin. Ben and Julia.
Matt, we'll continue to check back as soon as this gets underway. Again, to reiterate Matt's point, this is not Deputy Pickett's funeral. This is merely to transfer his body from St. Vincent, where he gave his life now, to someone else. As we heard Matt mention, we're told that from the sheriff of Boone County that he gave his heart so that others can live. So not only does his legacy, Julia, live on through his family, through his wife and his 2 young children, but also now someone else's life he saved.
And it's amazing to see even the young woman we just heard from there with Matt had no connection to the deputy or his family, but works there on campus at St. Vincent and just felt, you know, like it was something that she needed to do to come out and support this family. And that's what we're seeing with that big group of people. And as we've mentioned, this procession will take place down Meridian Street and make its way to downtown Indianapolis. And you're encouraged, if you work downtown, if you work along this route, to stand out there and show your support.
You mentioned the young woman Matt just spoke to there at St. Vincent, but there was a vigil held over the weekend, and boy, Sheriff Mike Nielsen was very emotional speaking about Deputy Pickett. He talked about what it was like when the deputy first joined the department. Take a listen.
Our deputies has been beside him ever since we put him in the ambulance that day. We won't leave him until he's finally put to rest in his final resting place. But I was in there today, and I prayed with Jake, as I do every morning with him. But there was this peace and there's calm with Jake today. I think he knows that tonight will be his last night. I think he knows that tomorrow we begin those rough days ahead of us to move forward with the services. And what I do know is that I sat there today and watched him. I watched the machines breathe for him. And he paid that ultimate sacrifice. But he did it for you. For each one of us that are out there, he did that. And there's not one police officer, not one medic, not one fireman in this county that wouldn't do the same. They lay their lives down for their friends.
Boy, the sheriff has certainly stepped up for that community leading. You can't imagine how difficult that was for him as well. We have live pictures there to the left of your screen as this procession gets underway. But Julie, also a beautiful balloon launch.
Yeah, this was touching. Pickett grew up in Brownsburg. His wife actually teaches within the Brownsburg community there. And last night, the community gathered to show their support for his wife. She's a teacher at the Brownsburg White Lick Elementary School. So they showed up. They did this beautiful balloon launch. As we have also mentioned, Deputy Pickett leaves behind 2 young sons, so you can imagine the loss for that family, for this community. So we also know that counselors are on hand there today helping staff and students as they kind of come to terms with this new reality for Mrs. Pickett. Yeah,
Deputy Pickett, of course, even graduating from Brownsburg High School back in 2002, just 34 years old, giving his life for the Boone County community, for the Lebanon community, and really all of us here in central Indiana. And because Deputy Pickett actually died in Marion County, we do want to mention as we get closer to this procession, his body will head to the Marion County Coroner, which of course is in downtown Indianapolis. And we'll go over the route as well, because as we wait for that to begin on West 86th Street at St. Vincent Hospital, it's quite a trek here to downtown Indianapolis, Julia.
And what we're seeing here today at St. Vincent Hospital, obviously not just Boone County responders. This is people from all over the state that are coming here. We're also seeing posts of other communities throughout the country who are obviously hearing of Deputy Pickett's death. This is from the Frankfort, Indiana Police Department. Sergeant Munoz and Lieutenant Sorellis left PD shoulder patch at the Boone County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Jacob Pickett's memorial. So the Frankfort Police Department saying that they mourn with Boone County Sheriff's Office and they stand to help in any way. So a lot of other different communities reaching out to just let them know they're supported.
Right, it's unbelievable. So just a little background on Deputy Pickett. He was actually a canine handler for the Boone County Sheriff. He and his partner Brick, canine, had patrolled more than 2 years, and boy, it's so much about his life and legacies. We take a live picture of St. Vincent Hospital. You can see just after his organs had been donated, we'll go down to the corner here in Marion County. We'll hopefully at some point perhaps get some closure and on the exact cause of death and more information about how this all happened.
And the live picture you're looking at here right now, obviously the campus of St. Vincent Hospital there on 86th Street. This is Nab Road, which runs to the west side of the hospital, and then it's 86th Street that is just to the other side of this road. So they'll obviously go down Nab Road. This is closed off. You cannot drive through this area right now, but I mean, dozens and dozens of police officers here lined up waiting for this procession. It was scheduled to start around 9 o'clock, but obviously, you've got so many logistics here with so many different cars and people in play. And we have Matt McCutcheon there live for us, who we'll talk to in just a moment when this gets underway. We have crews spread out across the city. We'll have a picture from 38th and Meridian. Also, our Anna Carrera is live for us next to the coroner's office in downtown Indianapolis. Certainly a tough day here for so many, Anna.
Yeah, good morning, Ben and Julia. Definitely a tough day, and it is something that that's something that keeps coming up throughout the weekend. We were at the memorial this morning and during our sunrise show, and also throughout this weekend, to see people coming so early before 6 o'clock in the morning, just taking a few minutes with that memorial to just reflect on his life and on the sacrifices that he made for the community, and especially on the ultimate sacrifice in giving his life in the line of duty. Now, we want to give you an idea here. We're outside the coroner's office here on the south side of downtown, and you can see behind me the road. We've got a couple police officers out here who are waiting for what will be the end of this procession, this motorcade to the coroner's office. And we did speak with someone from the coroner's office this morning to kind of get an idea of what they will be doing. They said that the autopsy could happen as soon as today, and then from there the body would be released to the funeral home. So that would be another procession from here to a funeral home, and then there would be another from the funeral home to the actual grave site. So certainly still some steps between now and what we believe will be Friday, when the actual funeral is expected to happen. But certainly we are expecting to see so many police departments as Matt was showing you guys up north. When we were out there so far this weekend, we saw people from all different counties across Indiana stopping to pay their respects, whether police, whether fire, whether sheriffs, EMS, all just wanting to say they were grateful for what he did, and showing their support not just for the family, but also for the Boone County community and the sheriff's office, that now they are shouldering the load and trying to lift each other up during this hard time. Ben and Julia.
And we'll continue to check back as the procession is yet to get underway, as we saw the hearse pulling in there to St. Vincent Hospital off West 86th Street. This will be quite a long route that will travel, and hopefully a lot of people, Julia, will come out and pay their respects to Deputy Pickett. But also, if you are traveling, you'll want to know the route so you know what to avoid, just in case.
And Mimi Pierce has been keeping an eye on that, says some ideas to actually, divert traffic so that you don't, hold this procession up. Mimi, can you once again kind of go over where the route is, where this will be heading from and ending?
Right, and in fact, Julia, I think right now, because I'm seeing red here on 465, many people may have already started to try to divert off of 86th Street. So this might carry some extra traffic there in the eastbound lanes of 465 across the top side of town. So we're talking about coming off of Nab Road, where we've been showing you, northbound Nab Road. They will make a right-hand turn and head eastbound along 86th Street over to Meridian Street. Seeing some heavy traffic here northbound on Meridian. We've had some crews that have been working in this area, so hopefully that will suspend that work here. That route will then head south on Meridian. Remember, of course, that Meridian Street is cut off down by the Children's Museum. Here's a live look from Chopper 13 as we prepare for this off of Nab Road, where I've been showing you that location lined up. And again, we are waiting. It looks like it's probably going to be some more time before that line will get moving, as we just saw that hearse moving in. So a live look from St. Vincent's Hospital up on the city's north side. This route, again, will focus southbound on Meridian Street. And of course, they'll divert at 38th Street, heading westbound on 38th Street to Dr. MLK, which turns into West Street. The campus of IUPUI may be impacted by this, as well as traffic down around West and McCarty, that final spot, of course, for the coroner's office. Ben and Joy.
All right, Mimi, thanks. I know you'll be sticking around to see how this does start to affect traffic a bit here shortly.
We mentioned this all gets underway at St. Vincent Hospital, West 86th Street here in Indianapolis. Our Matt McCutcheon is there as people gather and we get closer to moving Deputy Pickett's body. Matt, tell us what you're seeing, kind of describe the atmosphere, how many people are gathered, and who is gathered.
Well, Ben and Julia, we're a little behind schedule right now, but you can imagine with so many logistics to work out, that of course is a concern. They're also patching some potholes along 86th Street right now, just in front of and near the St. Vincent Hospital campus. So that could also be part of the delay here. But just a few moments ago, in fact, the hearse arrived here at the hospital. What we're understanding will happen next is Deputy Pickett's body will be put into that hearse, and then from there we will expect this procession to begin into downtown Indianapolis to the Marion County Coroner's office. Now out here live, you can see that there is some movement here as we are expecting these proceedings to begin here in just a matter of moments. Law enforcement from all across central Indiana is represented here today. Tipton, Frankfort, IMPD, of course, Indiana State Police, a number of communities all here as well, waiting here for this moment. And also the first responders that work with Deputy Pickett on so many runs as well, emergency personnel, paramedics and the like. But also out here on the hospital grounds, we have a number of hospital staff, nurses and doctors taking time out of their day right now to line the streets here as this procession is getting underway. Right now here at this hour, we do have the firing up of motorcycles here at 9:15, sort of signaling that activity is about to begin here with this procession that will head into the downtown Indianapolis area. And you can see right now that activity is starting to begin here with the motorcade beginning to depart here right now. You can see that all the officers who are going by, on their badge, they have a black line on the middle of their badge indicating that they have lost one of their brothers here in the line of duty. So heavy hearts here with that. They're also bundled up because it is pretty chilly out here this morning as well, and will be a chilly morning for that commute on motorcycle. Also the police cars that are here as well, so many of them have that black stripe on it indicating that they have lost one of their own here as we begin the procession process. We do know that Deputy Pickett leaves behind a wife and two young boys who now must carry on without their father after he gave that ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, doing a job in which he loved. And he continued that on Sundays even, as I mentioned earlier, volunteering, helping to direct traffic at the church up in the Boone County community. And so many people have really shown so many signs of support for not just his family, but the entire law enforcement community at different vigils all across the area this weekend in Boone County, as well as leaving flowers and mementos, even a box of Girl Scout cookies at his squad car now parked outside of the Boone County Sheriff's Department. We now see the motorcade beginning to leave here. We have Indiana State Police as well as Carmel. Those are some of the officers I'm seeing here right now as they are leaving this procession right here outside of St. Vincent Hospital. And we are expecting here any time now that we have seen the motorcycles begin to leave. We do expect to see that hearse leave here in just a couple of minutes, as well as the large procession of cars from these various police departments who are also here this morning. And again, that route that you've been talking about, of course, will take into downtown Indianapolis here as this procession begins. This procession is expected to be last basically about an hour, so we're looking perhaps at 10:30 until things are kind of back to normal if your commute involves those areas that Mimi has been talking about for the morning commute. So we continue to watch things here as we await now the hearse to depart and then the escort from all of his fellow officers in blue. Ben and Julia.
Matt, just so emotional seeing everyone gathered. You could see nurses, physicians, of course, many members of law enforcement, both with police and the sheriff's department, gathered there at West 86th Street at St. Vincent Hospital here in Indianapolis. Quite an emotional scene, and it certainly was as well at the scene outside the sheriff's department, Julie, which is in Lebanon there in Boone County.
Yeah, I want to show you some video of a memorial that has actually just grown over the weekend. It's really amazing. Deputy Pickett's patrol car is sitting outside, and then just members of the community have come. They brought flowers, balloons, stuffed animals. Just such a touching scene here. Deputy Pickett worked for the Boone County Sheriff for 3 years. As you've probably heard, he worked as a canine handler with Brick, and he had done that with the Boone County Sheriff's Department for 2 years. In fact, one of the things I read this morning, Ben, is that he was working with a young group of students right before this pursuit on Friday morning, showing off Brick and showing off his handling expertise to these kids, and just, you know, showing his side of life.
Well, Sheriff Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department has talked about what a leader he was at Deputy Pickett at just 34 years old. He'd worked for a few departments before his service there to Boone County, but this is what he lived for. He knew, and every officer knows, that the ultimate sacrifice may have to be paid at some point to protect your community. This was happened just serving a search warrant at a home in Boone County, and he did what he had to do to protect his community and save others' lives, not only by helping that day, Friday, but also now by donating his organs so others can have life because of him. And
we've heard a lot from, of course, the Boone County Sheriff, and he's been very emotional, very touching over the last couple of days, and very embracing for this community. But we also talked to some of Deputy Pickett's friends. You know, they also saw him as a hero. Here's one of them we caught up with this weekend.
He's too young to probably understand the importance and the sacrifice that this officer made, but I think it's good for him to share in the pain that this family's going through. And I know this officer had 2 young kids, so I wanted to bring him out here just to pay our respects to him and his family.
Boy, it's just this gentleman not even really knowing Deputy Pickett that well, but knowing that what he did. And he talked about his young son. He'll one day understand the ultimate sacrifice paid. We have crews spread all over, as I mentioned. Anna Carrera is actually downtown here in Indianapolis, outside the coroner's office. And I believe you have somebody with you who would like to speak about Deputy Pickett.
Yeah, Ben and Julia, we have Rick Snyder here with Indianapolis FOP, and this is a separate FOP than the one that you guys, there's a separate one in Boone County, but certainly you guys have walked this path before. And talk to us a little bit about what kind of these steps are like for you guys as a department and as a whole, you know, and here in the area.
Well, it's a time for us to come together. It's a time for us here in Indianapolis to help lift up and support our fellow brothers and sisters in Boone County and the Pickett family. We take it as a serious obligation to support them, especially when they are brought into our city, to the hospital, and help to take care of them while they're here, and then also work to help them get Deputy Pickett back home.
Absolutely. And we've had some people on social media who have asked, you know, why are we broadcasting this? Why is this, you know, why is this not just a personal thing? And this is something that you guys want to be involved in.
Yeah, sure. That's understandable. And it's important to remember that it is a very personal thing for these families. And they also recognize that it's also important for the community to be able to see what sacrifice means. And sacrifice isn't just the life that was given here, it's the daily sacrifice of service and the threats that our officers face. And so it's times like these, unfortunately, that our communities get a very visible reminder of that. And you can see that they haven't lost heart in that. And they line the procession routes and come out and show their support for these families, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we were talking about this weekend when we met was that, you know, even after everything that happened on Friday, your guys are still back out there. They are patrolling the streets. They are still doing what they do and putting themselves on the line just like they would any other day.
Well, and that's why it's important to step forward and pay tribute and honor to Deputy Pickett not just for his sacrifice that he made here in his death, but also his sacrifice on a day-to-day basis in the way that he lived his life and in selfless service to his community. That's what this is all about. And what's nice is that we in the Hoosier State still remember that and honor that, and it still means something here. And we will see that throughout this entire week as folks come out to support this family and our law enforcement community.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, too, that hit me as we were talking with people this weekend is, there was a woman who says, my son works for law enforcement, and on any given day, it could be him. It could be, you don't know who it will happen to. And so it's just important to bond together and to, whichever department, to just rally around each other. How much of an impact does that make on you guys and on, being able to have this support from the community?
Well, you're going to see it here today with the hundreds of officers that will be here showing the support and helping escort the family here. Our law enforcement officers, but also their families, they know that on any given day, this could be them. But that's what they lay on the line. And so that's what we always say, we shouldn't just respect our officers for what they do, but for what they may have to do. And every officer knows that. Every family member of an officer who sends them out there each day, they know that as well. And so it hits home. It hits home hard. But it's important that our community remembers that as well. Not just on these days, but on the days where everything seems to be going well. Well, it's going well because of strong women and men who are out there defending our communities every single day from those that would do harm.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Rick Snyder from the Indianapolis FOP. We are here again at the Marion County Coroner's Office where we are waiting. This will be where the end of the escort happens for Deputy Pickett. Ben and Julia.
All right, yeah, they're at West and McCarty Street there at the coroner's office in Indianapolis. Anna, thank you. Moving to hear from that perspective.
Right. They didn't even work together, but just this brotherhood, sisterhood amongst law enforcement all across the country, not even just here in the Hoosier State. We see, Julia, a live picture here just outside St. Vincent Hospital, West 86th Street. If you're just joining us, Deputy Pickett, his body is now being taken from St. Vincent Hospital to where our Anna Carrera is stationed there in downtown Indianapolis to the coroner's office. This is not his funeral. That, all we know, will take place Friday. Those are admittedly all the details we have at this hour, but this just goes to show the respect and admiration they have for Deputy Pickett's life and the legacy now he leaves behind. And as we've mentioned, Deputy Pickett was a canine handler for the Boone County Sheriff's Department, did that for 3 years. He had just an ordinary morning, Friday morning, as we've mentioned, was entertaining a group of school children with his canine officer, kind of showing them how his job is, when he got a call that he needed to provide support for another officer after a police chase. A car had been pulled over, everyone inside ran away, and Deputy Pickett actually took off after this. That's when he was shot, when he was pursuing the suspect. Just helping out another officer on duty who was serving a search warrant. As we see the casket now being brought out, St. Vincent Hospital. They'll, of course, insert Deputy Pickett into the back of the hearse, which will soon leave St. Vincent there on West 86th Street here in Indianapolis and make its way to downtown. An emotional scene, Julie, as you can see law enforcement all gathered there behind his casket, draped there in the American flag. You also see a canine right there off to the side. Not sure, obviously, if that was his canine that he worked with named Brick, but it likely is. All saluting and certainly giving their respect to not only what Deputy Pickett did to protect and serve his community this past Friday when this incident occurred, but he passed away this morning around 4 o'clock, and during that process donating his, we know from Sheriff Nielsen there from Boone County, donating his heart so others can live, and we're told perhaps several other vital organs were donated as well. And it looks like that canine actually was just loaded into the hearse with Deputy's body. And we talk about the relationship between a canine and an officer, and they had worked together for several years. That relationship is like no other. An officer just like Deputy Pickett
We'd heard the sheriff talk over the last couple of days how he always knew that his deputy, that he wanted to be a canine handler, because he didn't start out that way. And he said he trained and he trained and he trained, and he said he's one of the best ones we'd ever had in our community.
He picked it up in just a few years. At 34 years old, he wanted to be such a leader for the Boone County Sheriff's Department, of course, and he had served in a few other departments as well. Actually, before joining Boone County, Deputy Pickett served as deputy for the Tipton County Sheriff's Office from 2012 to 2015. He actually graduated locally here, Brownsburg High School, back in 2002. And our Matt McCutcheon had mentioned he served to help parking at Traders Point Christian Church there in Whitestown, just because he could, just because he wanted to be a help to everyone coming in and out for church services on Sundays at that church.
Now it looks like all the officers there probably now going to their cars now that Deputy Pickett's body has been loaded into that hearse. This procession, it will probably be a lengthy one. You know, they have, a good 20 miles almost to get from the St. Vincent, West 86th Street location in here to Weston McCarty near downtown Indianapolis. And we've seen the lineup of cars there, a lot of cars, dozens. I hate to say more than 100 because I didn't count all the way, but it certainly looks pretty lengthy.
Well, Julia, a lot of people may want to go out and pay their respects to Deputy Pickett. The weather, luckily the rain has held off for this procession. Mimi, I know you've been talking about this route also, just so everyone can perhaps make this procession go as smoothly as we can. When they depart St. Vincent Hospital on West 86th Street, where will they go from there?
Well, right now you're looking at them getting into their cars. A lot of them have been positioned along Nab Road, which will go northbound on Nab Road. They will make a right out of the hospital, which will be then traveling along 86th Street. They'll be traveling eastbound on 86th Street over to Meridian Street and then southbound on Meridian. Of course, we do have the Meridian Street closure because of construction down by the Children's Museum. So they will make a right-hand turn onto westbound 38th Street. Westbound 38th Street over to Dr. MLK, where Michigan Road turns into Dr. MLK. That eventually turns into West Street. So this will be near the campus of IUPUI. I did see a post earlier from the campus alerting students in the area that traffic could be stopped and probably will be for quite some time. So keep that in mind. If you do have to travel over to the campus, you may want to get there early or plan your trip later this afternoon. But in the meantime, that will impact traffic up and down that stretch of West Street and eventually will end up at McCarty. Ben and Julia.
All right, Mimi, thanks so very much. Mimi also noted, she's been doing traffic all morning, that they are doing pothole patrol right there along 86th Street as well as down Meridian. So hopefully, there's some communication between these organizations.
And know that if you are wanting to pay your respects and perhaps you're closer to downtown, it might be just a little bit before the procession makes its way down. You had such a keen eye, Julia. You noticed a canine close to the hearse containing Deputy Pickett's body. We're told that is Brick, his canine that he worked with so valiantly. Matt McCutcheon is actually outside of St. Vincent Hospital here on West 86th Street. Matt, as this procession begins to take place, what is the scene like there now?
Oh, good morning to you. We're seeing the police officers now coming out of the hospital after that moment. Deputy Pickett was loaded into that hearse. They're now returning to their cars here where they will begin the process of making that drive to downtown Indianapolis. A slow drive, a very somber drive as well. A lot of heavy hearts here you can see on these police officers' faces. Also on their badges, you'll notice many of them have the black stripe on their badge indicating they have lost one of their fellow brothers on the force. And as we sort of take a look around, the people here in the crowd who are also gathering out here watching and waiting everything unfold, we've noticed a couple of different people who have brought American flags with them. Some even have some handwritten messages as they stand and wait and show their respects here to this officer who's given the ultimate sacrifice. Also over here in the crowd we have a gentleman here who has a bouquet of those yellow flowers that you see right there as well. So many people are taking time out of their day. That includes ordinary citizens as well as employees here of the hospital at St. Vincent Hospital, which has been such a long weekend for them, as well as the Boone County Sheriff's Department and fellow officers from all across central Indiana right now. We are beginning to hear some of the cars and some of the motorcycles fire up as well here as we begin and await this procession involving the hearse and moving that to downtown Indianapolis to the coroner's office. And then we are expecting on Friday that funeral services will be held here, a very touching day here in this community here in Indianapolis, just outside of the 86th Street St. Vincent Hospital campus. So this was originally slated to begin at 9 o'clock this morning. Right now, just after 9:30, the process is slowly beginning here. Of course, so many emotions during a time like this when you gather to have a real private moment, which is really kind of what that was with the body being loaded into the hearse, a private moment for the law enforcement community. The entire time that Deputy Pickett has been here at St. Vincent Hospital, there has been someone from the Boone County Sheriff's Department here every step of the way, inside and outside of his room. And we also heard from Sheriff Nielsen over the weekend as well, talking about how he just sat with him for a few moments on Sunday and felt just really a unique sense of peace and clarity in that moment, despite the fact that, there were all these machines that were breathing for Deputy Pickett. And he talked also, Sheriff Nielsen talked about leaning on his faith at a time like this to get through this loss and what will be a long, not just the long weekend that he had to deal with, but the long week ahead, getting ready for Friday's services as well. So any moment now, we are expecting this hearse to begin the process of getting here onto Nab Road, and then from there going on the 86th corridor. And right now, the hearse is slowly beginning to inch away here from the St. Vincent campus onto Nab Road here, as we expect that process beginning right now. Then we'll have the escort from all the officers, again, from many different sheriff's departments and police departments, Indiana State Police as well, IMPD, so many officers who felt compelled to come here today, many of whom worked with Deputy Pickett, some of which did not know him. But again, it's that strong brotherhood that you hear so much about that really made them want to come here today. We heard on Friday from Sheriff Nielsen that the thin blue line had been shattered that day. Such an emotional day. From where I'm standing right here, awaiting this the hearse to come here onto Nab Road, we see it slowly going by right now, and it's also being escorted by officers as well. Very much kind of a poignant moment here as this takes place, and something that you don't really, you don't see too often. I want to bring in the kind woman we spoke with just a few moments ago, watching this right now. You've been here for about 35 minutes, as we have. This is really sort of a sombering moment.
You just said it. It's hard to hold back the tears, to be honest. Just everyone coming out here. It is freezing, but it doesn't matter. We're here for a purpose as a community, to just draw near to each other, because this is such a hard time right now. And even if you don't know the family or any of these guys on the force, you definitely just want to just bond near to them right now because of how hard this is.
I know we spoke a little earlier, but what made you drop everything and come here today, and as you mentioned, brave the cold and be here to be a part of this?
Gosh, I think my heart just goes out to the family. I have a great group of coworkers that are back there, covering my job, but I just felt like I needed to be here, and I'm very proud of the city that I work in and live in, and I just want to stand behind my city.
Thank you very much for joining us. That's some of the different sentiments that we're hearing here this morning as the procession is expected here to begin. You can see we've got a brief moment here of pause, and also touching is not only seeing these fellow officers now with their hands on their heart, but also medical personnel here as well, pausing with that sort of moment, that salute, if you will, as everything is expected to begin. We also are now seeing some police cars beginning to slowly leave here from the hospital and pull away. That includes the City of Lawrence Police Department, IMPD as well. So we are slowly beginning to see those officers prepare to leave. And then just back a short distance away from where that hearse is going to turn out of the hospital onto Nab Road right here, you see also some more IMPD and fellow officers as well waiting in queue for this departure here with the hearse of body Deputy Pickett, a true American hero who gave his life the ultimate sacrifice. Now we're seeing more of those cars begin to leave, and this procession will begin here in just a short amount of time. They'll be making that voyage into downtown Indianapolis here with this body, a process that is expected to take just about an hour. And as these officers leave right here from the many different departments and municipalities all across central Indiana, we're seeing not just a show of such respect and camaraderie from all these different departments. We're also seeing on their badges that black stripe I've been talking about, indicating that they have lost one of their own in the line of duty. Now, as these officers are beginning that process here of getting onto Nab Road one by one, they're also following shortly behind here in the motor vehicles as well, and we're waiting now for that hearse to begin the process here to turn. They're working on some logistics right now as they begin to lay everything out right here, and we're seeing more of these different departments all across central Indiana represented here this morning from different cities and municipalities for someone who leaves behind a wife, a teacher, and two young boys who now will not know their father. So very emotional to think about all those many different aspects as well, and the long weekend that all of his fellow officers have had watching and wondering and waiting. And we do know that just before 4 o'clock this morning, Deputy Pickett did pass away. But something else we heard from Sheriff Nielsen that is so touching and humbling at a time like this is knowing that so much of Deputy Pickett will live on through his organ donations, his heart going to a recipient right here within the St. Vincent Hospital campus. In the days ahead, we expect to learn more information about that person and their need and their stage of life. But we do know that his heart will go to a recipient right here in the hospital. So many organs of his have been donated right here in central Indiana, making a part of him live on much beyond what happened on Friday. More of these officers are departing right here, again getting ahead of the hearse, which should be departing right here from Nab Road onto 86th Street really at any time here this morning, really beginning that sort of sombering process and a great show of force and support from all across the community. We've noticed also here on the procession route, so many people are also stopping and putting their hand over their heart, a show of respect, a sign of support here as well this Monday morning, taking time out. This procession was expected to start about 9 o'clock, 9:40. It's really kind of starting to get underway, so they've taken a good amount of time out of their day. But you just heard from that woman we were talking to, Ben and Julie, it's really all about that sign of support for the sacrifice that they have given just to keep us safe in our everyday lives.
Here, Matt, when she's talking about that, it's really hard to hold back the tears. This is so emotional. This is someone who served our community and died serving our community. And
Sheriff Mike Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department has really had to show such strength and honor as we show you a live picture from Chopper 13 HD as we show the procession route. But we want to talk about the life of Deputy Pickett. Sheriff Nielsen actually spoke to this, and he had a request for people all over this community. Take a listen.
But I knew Jake, and I knew who he was, and I knew what he believed in, and I know he's at peace now. So continue to pray for us, because we need you. We need you this week. We need you in the coming months, and we'll need you for the years to come. Know that the Sheriff's Office, the Lebanon Police Department, the Zionsville Police Department, all those law enforcement agencies out there could not do what we do each and every day without your support. Most of all, know that we love you. We love you very much. Just continue to pray for us. Thank you very much.
Sheriff Mike Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department. Can't even tell you how incredible it is to show his type of strength going through what he said was the worst day he's ever had in his professional life.
And he's certainly handled it with such grace, making sure that he attended two separate vigils last night, held in Boone County there in Lebanon last night to honor his deputy. Again, these are live pictures that you're seeing right outside St. Vincent Hospital. This is Nab Road that is closed off right now, except to this procession, which is right now the cars will be preceding the body of Deputy Pickett that is in the hearse you see there. But it is amazing to see all of the people, and you know, Matt has mentioned, I mean, it's in 32 degrees right now. It is cold out there.
And if you do want to come out and pay your respects, I know, Mimi, this is a long route from Nab Road, West 86th Street area of the northwest side, of Indianapolis. It will slowly make its way toward downtown. What is this route going to look like?
Right now you're seeing that live look where you're just seeing that pickup truck pass by on northbound Nab Road. You saw the long line that was already starting to proceed along that stretch of eastbound 86th Street. Eastbound 86th Street, of course, to southbound Meridian Street, and then kind of the long drive southbound Meridian Street to 38th Street. Of course, south of there, the road is shut off because of construction, so that will force traffic to go west on 38th Street over to Dr. MLK, which eventually turns into West Street on down towards McCarty Street. I just saw when we showed the chopper over 86th Street just a few minutes ago that, of course, all traffic and paying their respects, as they should, was stopped there in the westbound lanes of 86th Street. Of course, they have traffic blocked off through the route, but right now you're looking live at northbound Nab Road as these police officers make their way up to 86th Street, and then we are awaiting for the hearse to depart that parking lot there at St. Vincent's Hospital on the city's north side of town. Again, this will be a lengthy procession this morning, anticipating maybe an hour to over an hour to work its way from the city's northwest side down Meridian Street to that area at the coroner's office at West and McCarty. So as we continue to keep an eye on this location, we are waiting for the departure of this hearse out of the parking lot, a long line. So going to kind of keep with this right now on Nab Road, but 86th Street, as we saw all those law enforcement that were already starting to gather there to make its way towards Meridian Street as we get ready for the departure of the hearse here from St. Vincent's Hospital. Ben and Julia.
All right, Mimi, thank you so very much. And if you're just joining us, our coverage here, Deputy Pickett was actually a canine officer with the Boone County Sheriff's Department. Now, as we see that hearse starting to finally make its way out there onto Nab Road, eventually there 86th Street, and then to Meridian. And we saw earlier, if you were joining us, a pretty poignant moment when his actual canine that he worked with, Brick, was actually there near the hearse.
Yeah, they worked together for over 2 years, Julia, and we all know they were an officer just like Deputy Pickett. They served together to protect and serve their community there in Boone County. And this, as Mimi mentioned, is quite a long procession. You have an opportunity to come out and pay your respects to Deputy Pickett if you'd like. Again, we'll go over this one more time. The route, as we watch this travel from Chopper 13, will go from St. Vincent Hospital, West 86th Street, then to Meridian. It will travel mostly down that stretch. Then once they hit 38th Street, they'll head westbound to southbound Dr. Martin Luther King Street, and that motorcade continues south through the downtown Indy area and will end at the Marion County Coroner's office on McCarty Street. And we do have Anna Carrera down there, and of course as the procession gets closer to her, we'll keep everyone updated.
You know, this hit the community of Lebanon really hard. It's a small community. You know, I've talked a lot. If you know me or watch this show, you know I grew up there. Right. My family is still there, my mother, my sisters. One of my sisters was working in the middle school Friday morning when this happened. This was a moment of sheer panic for this community when they thought they had gunmen out on the loose. Her school happened to be on lockdown, locked in rooms, lights out, for 45 minutes while this hunt went on. Well, as you can imagine, then when the tragic news comes out of Deputy Pickett's death that day, or at least subsequent shooting that day, they just came together immediately. There was a basketball game in that community Friday night where they wore ribbons in his honor. They, you know, more people gathered than normally are there. They all just kind of wanted to be together as a community.
And they're healing together. They have been through so much, that community, in the last week or so. And look at these people paying their respects on the opposite side of where this procession will go, flanked, of course, by officers on motorcade as Deputy Pickett's body is in the casket.
And look, Ben, how you see people in one lane of 86th Street here that are pulled over. People are out of the car to honor him as well.
And you mentioned a cold and dreary Monday morning as this casket makes its way down to the Marion County Coroner's office. Again, this is not the funeral for Deputy Pickett. That will take place Friday. We admittedly don't have a lot of details regarding that, but this is just to transport his body from the hospital where he was cared for during those trying moments to the coroner's office, where perhaps we'll get an official cause of death at some point.
Yeah, we know he grew up in Brownsburg. He may very well have family members still in Brownsburg. His wife worked at a community school in Brownsburg, so it's likely they still have very strong ties there. Maybe that community will be involved in Friday's funeral. As you mentioned, we still are waiting for many of those details to come in, and of course we'll share those with everyone when we know them.
Well, he is a Brownsburg High grad of 2002. He's just 34 years young. Again, a wife and 2 young children. We mentioned the strength of Sheriff Mike Nielsen from your home community of Boone County. He's the sheriff there. He's talking about the organ donation that Deputy Pickett made and how that helps him feel peace.
So, God has his hand in that. He's going to live on. And that peace that I felt is knowing that he is going to live on. He's going to live on in others. He clearly is going to live on in me.
Boy, I mean, the strength that community, Julia, has shown is absolutely incredible as we continue to take live pictures of this procession route.
And we know he was injured in this shooting on Friday. A lot of details aren't still known about his injuries and what those were. But the sheriff came out and he said, we know he will not make it at this point. We know that, he was kept in the hospital all weekend. We knew the expected outcome. And then talk came about this organ donation. And, it's such a valiant thing that you can do. Your essentially last gift on earth is saving other lives. And, we know we'll hear more the next couple of days, or maybe it might take longer than that. But exactly what organs he was able to donate, with the exception of the heart, and the lives that he's likely saved.
Right. And as our Matt McCutcheon reported earlier, Julie, I mean, that heart going to a patient right there in St. Vincent Hospital here locally, and you would imagine some other organs will help save the lives of so many others. And it brings to the point, as you mentioned, the importance of organ donation. It is such a selfless act. He already gave his life for the Boone County and Lebanon community, just helping out a fellow officer who was trying to serve a warrant, which obviously turned deadly.
And unfortunately, we know this all too often in our community. We've seen officer deaths, unfortunately, here. Most recently, in 2017, Southport police officer Lieutenant Allen, he was shot responding to a crash. Again, an officer in our community. The ultimate sacrifice, and we saw then, as it's doing now with Deputy Pickett, it brought a community together, a community mourned together and honored his life together. Boy,
and we want to make this about Deputy Pickett's life, but in case you are joining us and you're getting caught up on the story of how we made it to this point on this Monday morning, at 9:30 Friday morning in Lebanon, which is in Boone County, Deputy Pickett was called in for support for a police chase. Well, the car pulled over and everyone inside ran out. And police say that's when this suspect shot Deputy Pickett, who was responding to the scene. Police returned fire. Deputy Pickett then was taken to St. Vincent Hospital on West 86 here in Indianapolis to be treated. And those had to be such trying moments, Julie, for the hospital staff at St. Vincent. They are used to taking care of those afflicted by horrific tragedies, but this is unique in that he was protecting and serving their own community.
Yeah, and as we'd heard on Friday, actually, the suspect and deputy was taken there to that hospital. Really, the only comment that came out is we know that it's Hamilton County that is going to handle the suspect. That just gives you, idea. So, and the suspect, we should mention, Anthony Baumgart, just 21 years old. So we know now, after being treated for his injuries, he's at the Hamilton County Jail. That must be something that departments do for one another, because how hard it would be, you would think, for Boone County officers to handle this suspect that's taken the life, or allegedly taken the life of one of their own.
Absolutely. We talk about the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the community amongst law enforcement here locally, all across the country, paying their respects. And we're still waiting on official charges for Anthony Baumgart regarding this horrific tragedy. We do know that Deputy Pickett passed away around 4 o'clock this morning, and that's when his organs, we believe, were donated. That's according to Sheriff Mike Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department, who essentially was Deputy Pickett's boss. And from all accounts, we know from the vigils that Deputy Nielsen has spoken at in regards to Deputy Pickett's life, they were great friends and also co-workers, and had a wonderful relationship. As you mentioned, Deputy Pickett, a canine officer, worked with his canine Brick for over 2 years, and We're told that Brick is in the hearse alongside the casket and body of Deputy Pickett.
Sheriff Nielsen has said from the moment this all happened that someone from Boone County, one of our own, will be with Deputy Pickett, and that is true even for his canine Brick, and he's saying he will stay with him until, you know, the very end during the burial on Friday.
You talk about, obviously we didn't know Deputy Pickett personally, but the things that are coming out from his friends, mentioning that he just volunteered at Traders Point Christian Church, which I'm sure a lot of you in the community know well. He volunteered there on Sundays to help with traffic flow. It's a largely attended church on the city's northwest side near Zionsville and Whitestown, and he volunteered and was friendly to so many people. Actually, one of the local pastors at the northwest campus of Traders Point Church spoke to the quality man that Deputy Pickett was, smiling and waving to church attendees Sunday mornings and just helping with the traffic flow there. Just goes to show you the type of man that he was.
Yeah, and as we're looking at this procession, I believe they're starting to get closer, getting ready to make the right-hand turn, what will be onto Meridian Street. So they are making progress down 86th Street, and then it will not be a direct shoot down to West and McCarty. Obviously, they'll veer off, as we've mentioned, there at 38th Street.
And we have a camera at 38th and Meridian that will show you that picture when the procession arrives there. And of course, our Anna Carrera, as I mentioned, is in downtown Indianapolis at the Marion County Coroner's office. We'll talk to her a little bit later. In the meantime, as we continue to watch this procession, we will not cut away from this live picture from Chopper 13, but we want to hear from Sheriff Mike Nielsen talking about how difficult this has been on their department.
So let me say, this is a week, the last few days, the last 72 hours will go down in one of the worst weeks in my career. I'll never forget it. This community will never forget it. And it's unfortunate, but the hardest time's about to come. And that's what scares me. But what reassures me is to know that each one of you sitting out there have our backs. I know that. You know, God has a plan for everything. I honestly do believe that.
And he's right. Sheriff Mike Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department been such a leader and handled this with such grace, as you mentioned, Julia, throughout this tragedy.
It's so touching to see all the vehicles, you know, likely some of them not really even sure what they're seeing here because, you know, they may not be aware of it, but then to see all of these officers and then some of the people that are getting out of their cars even saluting Deputy Pickett's body and obviously his officers that are there escorting his body. Let's get over to Mimi Pierce, who obviously is on traffic duty here for us this morning, keeping an eye on. I thought they were getting pretty close to Meridian, but maybe not quite so close.
You know, I just watched them. This intersection they're approaching right now, Julia, is Spring Mill Road, so got a little ways to go by the church on that stretch of 86th Street. So they're probably about an eighth of a mile from making the turn onto southbound Meridian, as you see on our stretch where they've been traveling eastbound 86th Street and then southbound along Meridian Street. As you go south on Meridian, they'll make their way down to 38th Street. Of course, south of there, construction has a stretch of that area shut down, so they will make that westbound or right-hand turn right there at heavily traveled 38th and Meridian Street, making her way over to westbound 38th Street and then hanging a left onto that stretch of southbound Dr. MLK, where it eventually turns into West Street. Right now, you're getting a live look from Chopper 13 as these police escorts make that right-hand turn onto southbound Meridian Street. You can see that traffic, of course, stopped in all directions in this area with the procession making its way. So we are awaiting the turn of that hearse to go south along that stretch of Meridian Street, keeping an eye all the way down to 38th Street. And again, that heavily traveled stretch of westbound 38th Street and then a left on Dr. MLK. And just a reminder, if you have to head to the campus of IUPUI, that will also be impacted this morning. So if you have travel plans over to the campus, just keep in mind that West Street will be affected south on MLK, where it turns into West Street and eventually making its way to the coroner's office right there near McCarty and West Street as you get a live look from our map. So we're seeing those 4 red vehicles that are just ahead of the hearse in this area. So that hearse is getting ready to make that southbound journey down Meridian Street all the way down towards 38th Street as we just watch right now and watch it make the turn to head south into the downtown Indianapolis area.
Well, you see all these vehicles come to a stop. And as you mentioned, Julia, perhaps they know what's happening, perhaps they don't. But just showing their respect to Deputy Pickett as that hearse makes its way, as Mimi mentioned, down Meridian. His casket in the back. We know his canine that he worked with for over 2 years, Brick, is alongside the body of Deputy Pickett on a very emotional day. It is a cold, dreary Monday morning, but fortunate perhaps for those onlookers who want to pay their respects. Julia, no rain so far this morning as this procession makes its way to downtown Indianapolis.
We're so glad for that. We know we've got rain coming. We're glad it's able to hold off for this very important procession. We've heard a lot from Sheriff Nielsen with the Boone County Sheriff's Department on how he felt about Jacob, you know, really touched by everything that he did for him. But we also caught up with a childhood friend who says he could have been anyone's friend. He just had that personality.
Jacob was the epitome of justice, loyalty, and joy. Having a commanding presence, being a bigger gentleman, always being very loyal for his friends, always there to crack a joke, always there to put a smile on people's face.
So a friend there, as we mentioned, he grew up in Brownsburg and graduated from Brownsburg High School. So still a lot of his friends and, you know, the community that he knows. Graduated just in 2002 from Brownsburg High School. So young at 34 years old, and you could see that balloon release happening there in Brownsburg. We know his wife is actually a teacher in the Brownsburg school system outside White Lake Elementary. We do know counselors, of course, will be on hand to help staff and students there that know and work with his wife, and you just can't imagine what their family is going through, especially the entire Boone County and Lebanon community, a community you're so familiar with yourself, Julia. You know how everybody feels. It's a community that is large, but it almost feels like everyone knows each other. Yeah, you do feel that way, because it is a small. We have one high school there, we have one middle school there. You know, so you know we're not one of these large communities. You know, like Fishers and Carmel. It's a small community. I guarantee. You know, my mom calls me all the time. Did you hear about? You know, they all know. Everybody knows everyone. You know, my sister Suzanne has a story from Friday when all of this was unfolding. My sister Mindy has a story of how she was affected when all of this tragedy was unfolding there in Lebanon. So I guarantee pretty much everyone has a story when this tragedy happened. And then the community really gathered together. As we mentioned, they started gathering out at the 4-H fairgrounds, very close to actually the Sheriff's Department. That started Friday night. And this, by the way, you're seeing some memorial video there up at the top. That is Deputy Pickett's patrol car that has now turned into a massive memorial right out outside the Sheriff's Department. You see balloons, flowers, pictures of Deputy Pickett as well, and that has grown obviously since this horrific incident from Friday morning at 9:30 there in the Lebanon and Boone County community. People paying their respects that way, of course, as we watch to the left of your screen the procession that is making its way down Meridian Street, which will eventually make its way to downtown Indianapolis, and that's where Anna Carrera is, outside of the Marion County Coroner's office. And as this procession makes its way to you, what are you seeing in downtown Indy so far this morning?
Yeah, good morning, Ben and Julia. We have, you know, we're right here outside of the Marion County Coroner's office, and you can see around us there are several police cars that are kind of stationed around here waiting for this processional to get here. They know it's going to be, you know, as it has been all the way up and down, a lot of traffic, and so they are mindful of that and getting ready for that. As we've mentioned, this is where the coroner may make that final determination on what the exact cause of death was, the extent